top 3 most dangerous roads. This one. This one.
These two cars just collided, and if that car wasn't there, I would have been hit.
And that one.
Oh, oh! A portion of this video is sponsored by Surfshark.
Hello, and welcome to my first ever Q&A video. Last week, I asked you to ask me questions about my World Unicycle Tour, about the final video. Oh, thank you, by the way, if you watched the final video. It took me a month and a half to edit. And a lot of you seem to have really enjoyed it. So thank you for watching that. And we'll soon get into some questions. But first, you might be wondering who this is. This is my girlfriend, Aishola. Be nice to her. And you may recognise her from a certain tandem trip that we did 4 years ago here in Bishkek. That's another thing I need to tell you. I'm in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. I came back, I've been back here for 9 months. And 4 years ago, we did a tandem tour on a terrible single-speed Chinese tandem that I rented for like 20 quid. And we put some pannier bags on it and we went for a trip around Unicycle. Anyway, that's where you might recognise her if you're kind of wondering. Now we're going to get into some questions that you lovely lot asked me. The first one is, where are you now? I already answered that. I'm in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. I'll show you on a map where that is. What have you done since you finished your journey around the world? So since finishing in July 2018, so over a year and a half ago now, I've been spending, when I got back to the UK, I lived with my parents for a year and I did talks on stage talking about my World Unicycle Tour journey. So I was still kind of living the trip even though I wasn't actually cycling it. I was invited out to Alabama to the Stomp Unifest to do a talk there. I also helped Mark Beaumont out with his talk tour. I wasn't on stage, but I was helping kind of with the logistics. I think I don't know what my official title was, but I was helping, manager, I think. I was like driving around and helping set up the stage and doing the kind of logistics stuff. With that, I drove to Romania for school bag with 150 school bags packed into this car, which was cool to finally see kind of one of the projects where the bags go to. Anyway, I've been doing a bunch of things, and then about 9 months ago, I flew out to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and this is where I've been since then. Also editing, so a lot of my time has been taken up editing the USA series, and recently the UK video, and now I'm filming this because I'm out of footage to edit. Okay, next question. Where did you get the internet to upload videos during the trip? So various different places. Obviously a big one is if I was staying with someone, I would ask to use their Wi-Fi and upload videos from there. I'd often also go to restaurants and cafes, stop up on, halfway through the day, eat some food, edit for a little bit, and also try and get some uploading done from there. That worked well for most parts of the world, but certain places like in China where the internet is pretty locked down, and YouTube is actually outright blocked, I had to search for different solutions. And that's where this video's sponsor comes in. Surfshark is a VPN app and browser extension that lets you change your IP address in order to unblock content and websites that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access. It also adds a secondary layer of security to help keep your passwords and personal data safe. So in my case, where I needed to evade the Great Firewall of China, I'd use a VPN to simply click into a London location, appear as though I was accessing the internet from the UK, and get the videos out to you guys. But please don't think that a VPN is only useful in the rare use case of trying to upload unicycling around the world videos from a Chinese restaurant. It also comes in handy when you're trying to access geo-restricted content. Aishola and I actually use Surfshark here in order to access the UK and USA libraries of Netflix. This has been especially useful because we've been working through all of Louis Theroux's Unmissable documentaries, which surprisingly are only accessible through the UK version of Netflix. Surfshark is the only VPN to offer the use of one account on an unlimited number of devices. And if you use my code EdPratt, you'll get 85% off plus 3 extra months free. And if you decide, actually, this isn't for me, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there really is no risk to trying it out for yourself. The link is in the description below. Okay, next question. How are you coping in lockdown? what activities, etc., do you get up to?
Well, so we've been in lockdown already 3-4 weeks. It's a little bit strict in Kyrgyzstan. At the moment, we can go outside only with the list where we write the reason why we left the house, if we need to do shopping or need some medication from the pharmacy or need to see a doctor. And we can't really do activities, it's not allowed, but we have a small yard. We live in the apartments, and pretty much every apartment has a garage that it's stands close to each other and make a nice quadrate. And Ed and I go there sometimes just to jog around a little bit, making like circles. So it's fun. And yeah, I mean, it's also a lot of editing, working online, and we figured out that we have a little nest on a roof on a balcony, and there were 2 pigeon babies and 2 pigeon parents. So we were filming it. I mean, we didn't really want to disturb them, so we decided maybe you can tell.
Yeah, well, we didn't know what this noise was. It was
Yes.
this really loud noise, like in our roof. So I put the GoPro on a stick, and we just kind of shoved it up into the roof just to see what was making these like rustling noises every day. Yeah, we found out it was 2 little pigeons. So that's what we've been up to. Things are getting maybe a little bit boring here when we're starting to get some excitement from pigeon babies. Next question. How did you earn money on the trip? Did you stop and work in the country for a while? So this question, or a variation of this question, came up a lot. You guys want to know how I funded the trip, how much it cost, everything to do with money. I won't be answering that question in this video. I've dedicated a completely separate video that is basically just a breakdown of the entire trip's finances and how I made this sustainable. That's over on Patreon right now, so you can watch that video there. But I will answer this question. So, did I stop and work in the country for a while? Yeah, only once, and that was here in Bishkek. I taught English at a place called the English Zone. It was this kind of private school, I guess. And it was quite good fun. I did it mainly just because it was something to do while I was here, and it did help to raise a bit of funds for the sort of continuation of the trip.
I think it's nice to mention that it was during the winter time, because you couldn't really ride through the country. It's a lot of snow and the icy roads, so yeah. Yeah,
so I was in the country anyway. I needed to find something to do before the weather improved, so I did that, and it was good fun teaching English for a bit. What's your most ambitious or memorable camping spot? So you've never seen this because I haven't actually ever edited this footage. There's a big gap in the videos, which I might fill at some point, but at the moment I can't face another few months of editing, to be honest. But there's a gap from somewhere like in the half of Europe to Kazakhstan, and that covers the rest of Eastern Europe through Turkey, Georgia and Azerbaijan. And there was a point in Turkey where I stopped up at Cappadocia, and I found a cave, and I camped in the cave. That's basically the story. But it was a cool night, and I was woken up at I think 3 in the morning with all these hot air balloons. So the guys were setting off these hot air balloons, heating them up. So that was quite a memorable night, camping in a cave in Cappadocia. When did you start unicycling? So I learned to unicycle when I was 17. I was helping clearing out a friend's garage, and we found this little rusty 16-inch unicycle that had been there for I think years, and just unloved little unicycle. So I took it home. I sort of did it up, got the tyre working, and spent about 3 weeks falling off it one Christmas holiday, and just got a bit addicted to the idea of going further and further. So obviously initially I was just impressed if I could stay up on the thing. And then I went on to unicycle.com. I sort of learned about this whole kind of community of people that ride unicycles recreationally. So I bought a 29-inch unicycle from unicycle.com. It was a trainer. And then started doing longer and longer distances, sort of 4 or 5 miles around the village. At the time, I thought that was quite a long way. Obviously, since then, my sort of perception of that has changed.
Like, now I have to conquer the world. Something like this.
But I got into it, and then I bought a 36er and started to do much longer trips, and just enjoyed the idea of getting around on one wheel. So that was my first little unicycle. I still have it, little 16-inch bike. That's my parents' place back in the UK. How did you make sure you always had water? I didn't, in all honesty. I tried my best. I always knew roughly where I was going, and if I was about to hit a kind of deserty, barren section, then of course I would try and stock up on as much water as I could. But there was always that trade-off. I didn't have the capacity to be able to load my unicycle up with 20 litres, because then literally I would not be able to ride it. I think the most I ever put on it was about 7 litres, and that was in Kazakhstan. And there were times that I did run out, and I was places where I just needed to keep moving in order to find sort of food and water again. Water was the big one, obviously.
Have you ever used those tablets, that the one that you were carrying?
Yeah, so sometimes there was places where there literally wasn't any water like anywhere, so I couldn't even collect it from the side of the road. But in most places, I could go to a river, I could go to a lake, and I could pick up water and purify it in either putting chlorine tablets in it, which I did quite a lot, or I had a stove with me. So if I was stopping for the night, I could use this water, boil it up, make sure it's clean, and then cook with it. So that was kind of the 2 ways that I purified the water. How many tyres did you use? I think I went through 4 tyres on the trip, and I returned home on the 5th tyre. So I think generally they did pretty well, like 4,000 miles a tyre. I'm pretty happy with that, especially considering that is my only contact point on the road. Went through 4 tyres. How much of a pain was it to self-film the whole adventure? Actually, not at all. I loved filming it, and I think when I left, the filming wasn't really my priority, but certainly once I was 6 months into the trip, a year into the trip, it kind of became the focus for me. And being able to have that distraction while I was on the road, to be able to cycle a little bit and then go, maybe I'll put the camera there and try and get a nice composition, and even just keeping my sanity, just being able to have something to talk to if I was out alone on these big stretches. It wasn't a pain at all. I think it actually helped with the trip, and it also helped in a more tangible way where I could share this stuff. And also by the end of it, this is how I was helping to fund the trip as well, by making these videos. So no, not a pain at all. It was actually a real benefit, and I loved doing it. What were the worst weather conditions you had to unicycle in?
Thailand?
I mean, so there's different extremes, but certainly when I was in Thailand, if you've watched the videos, you've seen me kind of dying of, heat stroke or whatever it was when I was there, just because I was sweating so much and not replenishing the salts. That was pretty dire. In terms of actual stormy kind of weather, there was some bad wind and rain when I was in Kazakhstan, bitterly cold, winter time. This is my first sort of section in Kazakhstan, the first month I was there in the winter time. Just some awful weather that, you're out in the middle of nowhere, there is no shelter. I think at one point I tried to shelter in one of these storm drains, but then, over time, because it's raining, these storm drains, they fill up with water, so that kind of flushed me out. So really, the only thing you're doing in this situation is just keeping yourself moving, because if you stop, you're just getting cold and your body is just going numb. So that was probably one of the worst that I can think of. I'm sure there were many, many more over the course of the 3 years I was riding. What's the longest you've gone without a shower on your journey? Apologise for this. I think it was 3 weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks. And again, I think that was in Kazakhstan. And there was a time actually in Australia as well, where I think I went about 2 weeks when I was out in the Nullarbor. Or if I did wash, it would just be with a plastic bottle in the kind of toilets, just squirting it and just trying to just do the essential bits, like bum and armpits and stuff like that. How many miles per day? I'd always say I'd try and do about 50 miles, but in reality, I think it was more like 40 to 45. And obviously that doesn't include all the days I took off. and the days where I got distracted by something and only made it a couple of miles before someone invited me into their house or something like that. But I think if you take the entire distance of like 22,000 miles and divide it by the entire time I was away, I think it works out to just over 20 miles a day on average, including everything. So there you are. Your answer's in there somewhere. Top 3 most dangerous roads. This one. This one.
These two cars just collided, and if that car wasn't there, I would have been hit.
And that one.
Oh, oh!
What was the best decision on that trip? My best decision was, I honestly think, stopping in Bishkek for 6 months to teach English and also to get to know Aishola. There you are, simple one to that. Best decision. What's the most mad one-wheeled contraption you've ever ridden? So I'm not going to say the tandem unicycle, or that one is pretty high up there, but there was one when I went back out to Alabama to do a talk. They had at the Stomp Unifest, it was a penny farthing wheel, but it had been converted into a unicycle, and I think it was like 54 inches or something.
Crazy.
And I just about managed to free mount that. I think I've got footage. I'll put it now if I do. But that was a challenge, and the speed of that thing was quite impressive, but it wasn't comfortable to ride at all. I think I'll stick with the 36er. Where did you buy this unicycle, my unicycle? I bought my unicycle from unicycle.com, the UK branch. So Roger set me up with that. He actually gave me a discount as well because I told him what I was doing, and I said I was doing it for a ride for charity. I think he gave me 25% off, which was really nice of him. And he also just gave me advice on what the best parts I should use and which would be the most durable and lightweight and this kind of stuff. And it's a Nimbus Oracle 36er. There you are, with a big green wheel. The next question is, how's your Russian coming along, Ed? Я говорю очень плохо на русском. No? Is that wrong?
No, it's totally correct.
Okay,
No,
good.
You speak good Russian.
No, awful. Not nowhere near as good as it should be for being here for 9 months. How many tyre punctures do you think you had to fix over the whole tour, and what country did you have the most? I think I had about 80 over the course of the whole tour. I tried to work that out. It's obviously rough, but I think I got about 80 over the course of the whole trip. And in terms of which country, I think the States I got the most, particularly the section when I was following the Route 66 of the Jowway, the sections where we had to ride on the I-40 on the hard shoulder there. The roads were just absolutely awful, and we seemed to be just getting one. We would, between us, we would get at least one a day. Sometimes we'd both get one. Sometimes I'd get 2 a day. It was pretty dire. So there was a lot of patches on that tube by the time we got through that section. How do you keep your cameras and phone charged during the trip? I'd just be very sparing with battery. So what I was carrying with me my little MacBook Air, which I used as a kind of power bank source. I could plug stuff into it in the night in the tent. I didn't initially have a power bank, but I did have like multiple batteries for my camera. And then past that, you're just using everything sparingly. You know that you don't have much power and you can't waste it. So for something like the phone, oftentimes I would just keep it in my pocket turned off. If I was in a place where I knew I wouldn't be able to recharge for a couple of days, and then when I needed to check where I was, where I wanted to go, I'd turn it on, have a look at the map, see which road I needed to take, and then turn it back off again. And in terms of the filming, occasionally, a lot of the time, I wouldn't have any charge on my camera, so I wouldn't film. But the irony of that is you've never seen those times because I couldn't film, if that makes sense. So you're only ever seeing the times where I can film. But there was a lot of times where stuff just ran out of charge, and you just deal with it. As long as I know where I'm going, then I know that I'm going to come to a cafe. And in terms of then charging the gear up again, either it would be if I'd stopped in a cafe for a couple of hours, I could charge some stuff up then. If I was staying with someone that night, that would be an amazing opportunity just to get everything fully charged again. And then that was about it. I did play around with solar panels at one point, but I found that it wasn't efficient enough. The size that I had, I was maybe getting a quarter of my phone charge in 2 days out in the sun. So it wasn't for me. So there you are, that's how I charge stuff. how did I meet Aishola? Do you want to answer this one?
Oh, well, I think it was already like 4 and maybe a half years.
It was in November 2015.
Yeah, so it was already cold, so I was wearing my coat, and I was walking down the road, and after the library where I was learning in Germany, and I saw Ed standing in this crowded streets where people are cold, wearing hats and scarves and coat, and Ed was just standing in his t-shirt, chest open, with like massive, huge green wheel, and I thought, that's very weird. It's random. But eventually I stopped and I asked you a question in Russian, asking like, hey, can you actually ride the thing? It was like, huh? What? So yeah, you were standing posh, kind of like, I don't know what you were doing over there, maybe catching girls.
I was, so this was right at the start of my tour. Well, I say right at the start of my tour, 2015, when I'd arrived in Bishkek. And I was planning to go back out into Kazakhstan, so I was riding around the city looking for warm gear. And then I was on my way back to the hostel. I got a puncture on my unicycle, so I was having to walk it back. And we met on the corner of the street. Mm-hmm. And then we saw each other randomly a couple of other times. Bishkek is a small place, so just any event you go to, like you tend to see similar faces.
But eventually he found me on Facebook and texted me. I replied you after like a month or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you weren't that fast.
No, Facebook didn't notify me that you sent me a message. It didn't.
Oh, well, there we are. There we are. Okay. Did it always go well with your visas? No, it didn't. There was one time that I've never talked about this publicly, so I'm going to talk about it now. There was a time when I was applying. It was basically my first visa that I was applying for, and I was in Istanbul, so I was in Turkey, and I wanted to apply for my Uzbekistan visa. So I was at the embassy. I'd actually been there a couple of weeks before to drop off my paperwork. I'd waited around for 2 weeks in Istanbul, went back to the embassy to pick it up. They said, hey, look, your visa's ready, come pick it up. So I went there, and I naively wanted to film the experience of getting my first visa because I thought it was quite interesting, and I wanted to show people sort of what this process looked like because I've never done it before. I'll give you some advice. Never film in any embassy. It's not a good idea, especially the Uzbek embassy in Istanbul. They basically saw my camera and just sort of were like, look, mate, you're just messing around. They shot me. They sort of pushed me out of the embassy. They kept my passport, made me wait outside for an hour or two. Then called me back in, and then basically said, look, here's your camera, delete the footage. So, okay, deleted the footage. They gave me back my passport, gave me back my camera, and just told me to bugger off without the visa. And they said that I was now on some kind of watch list. So even if I wanted to enter the country, it would no longer happen. I never checked that because by the time I was maybe in somewhere else where I could have applied, I think in Georgia, I'd already decided that I was going to do a longer route through Kazakhstan to avoid this country. But this guy at the embassy, he didn't know it, but he actually sent me on like a 1,000-mile detour through Kazakhstan in order to avoid my original route. But that's all part of, it's all part of adapting to kind of what's being thrown at you. This was my initial route, but it was just a rough plan. And because nothing was really set in stone and everything was kind of taking it day by day, then it didn't matter that I had to do a different route. And actually, because of it, I got to see some great things and experience some awful weather, like I was talking about before. How did you deal with body odour, or did you just roll with it? Maybe you don't want to hear this, but I didn't carry deodorant for the entire time I was away. I did maybe buy a tube or two when I was here in Bishkek, when I stopped for the winter for 6 months. But when I was on the road, I decided that was some weight saving that I could do. So I just didn't. I decided, you know what, I'm going to be smelly, especially if I'm camping. You're riding all day and then you're camping, then you're riding all day. You're not going to smell nice. And the benefit was that I was by myself most of the time. So it wasn't really affecting anyone. So yeah, I'm sure I stank. What did you carry on your bag? List would be great. You rules, bro. Well, thank you, bro. You rules too. I've got a whole video that explains what I was carrying, so I'll send you to that. I'll put a link in the description, I guess. Thank you everyone who's decided to support me on Patreon. I really hope you're enjoying watching these videos a week early, and I want to say a particularly big thank you to my third tier supporters, and they are Adam Wan, Alec and Theo Beer, Alan, Ali and Baby Bear, Alex Brismail, Andrew Wilkinson, Axel Fontaine, IP, Brian White, Campbell Daff, Damon Walker, Daniel Brom, David Jolliffe, the Dodds family, Derek Donovan, Donald Brown, Elijah Legenda, Gea de Navaya, Gary Hull, Jeff and Kelly Elder, Hare Sorensani, James Wallace, Josh Lane, Justin Lewis, Kiki Tedger, Ludwig, Malvin Zen, Marcus Bauer, Mark Paris, Matthew Blood, Mike Foxwell, Patrick Hanna, Philip Merritt, Rebecca and Max Stegmeyer, Richard and Martha Walker, Electric Unicycle Collective, Sam Richardson, Sam Windstrom, Sophie Vunn, Stephen Jones, Stuart Carter, Neil Brooks, Tommy Nurmas-Jarvi, Tomo Thomas, Travis Capita, Tristan Smith, Warren Snyder, and Yoshi Chu. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to change up the format a little bit. Aishola, can you ask me some questions?
I'll try. So, Ed, what is your biggest regret from this trip?
I don't know. I don't know if I have many regrets. I think maybe one is that I wish I'd filmed more of the preparation of the trip. This is before I really knew anything about filmmaking. I'd made a few videos here and there when I was younger, but nothing really like sort of documentary style stuff. And I've got some stuff. I've got some stuff of my granddad building stuff and some, the final days where I was leading up to leaving. But I wish I'd had like the, a month or two of lead up sort of footage that I could use to make into some kind of film.
Good. And how much water did you drink daily?
I drank, obviously it varied where I was, but I think the most I was drinking each day was about 7 or 8 litres, and that was in the humid places like in the east of America and the Thailand and all of Southeast Asia. I was drinking a lot of water. Actually I think these are the 2 big places where I was drinking a lot. But then generally during the day, 2-3 litres would do me fine if it was a reasonably cool day. And then I'd be using maybe a litre or so for cooking when I was camping.
My daughter Minnie asks, did you see a bear?
I did see a bear, Minnie. Only one. It was a black bear in the States, and I was coming off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I was sort of almost down from these mountains, and I was sort of in the woods on this little track, and I turned a corner and he was just sitting there, sort of little black bear. And as soon as he saw me, he just shot off into the woods.
Oh my God, I just turned a corner and I saw a bear. Holy shit.
That was it. I didn't even have time to consider what I was looking at, let alone get a camera out to film it, so I don't have any footage of it. But I did see one black bear, and that was pretty cool.
You saw some pandas and koalas.
I saw pandas as well. I don't know, do they count as bears?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw some panda bears in Chengdu in China as well.
Did anything get stolen during your trip?
Yeah, I had a couple of things stolen. One was my head torch, which I used to keep in my helmet. I was crossing the border, and I think I left the bike unattended for a couple of minutes, and I think unfortunately one of the security guards, policemen there that was working there, decided he liked the look of this light, so he just took it off the helmet, and I never saw it again, which is unfortunate. That was in Kazakhstan, which I feel bad saying because Kazakhstan was a lovely country, but it's just unfortunate that happened there. And actually another time in Kazakhstan, I had a kid, I left my unicycle outside a shop, outside a magazine to get some food. And when I left it, I saw these kids were kind of looking at it, and I thought, whatever, they're just curious. And when I came back, put my food in my unicycle, went to walk back to the road, and then on my way walking back to the road, because I'd walked down this track to get to the shop, I noticed that my little USB speaker was missing. And I was like, damn. And I knew that one of the kids had just taken it. So I thought, well, what do? I didn't really care about it, and I didn't want the hassle of going back and asking, but I thought, I probably should. So I turned around and tried to explain in my best Russian or best sort of sign language English that this thing had gone missing. I tried to explain that to the parents of these kids because the parents were there running the shop, and all the kids kind of lined up and they all just said nothing. No one was going to miss anything. So I thought, okay, it's just a waste of time. So he's got it, but I knew the kid as well. I could tell the kid which was guilty, but there was nothing I could do. So I just walked away, and then I was almost back to the road, and I heard these sort of footsteps behind me, and one of the older kids had my little speaker. So I think probably what had happened is that one of the younger kids was the one that stole it, and he confessed after I'd gone, and then his older brother kind of ran up and gave it back. I'm sure he got a bit of a telling off for that afterwards, but there you are. So happy ending to that story, and yeah, really nothing else was nicked, which is quite good, I think.
It's good. It's good. How did you store all your video material, and how much space did it all take up?
I think the entire World Unicycle Tour was about 11 or 12 terabytes, something like this. I've got pretty much a copy of all the hard drives here in Bishkek. I've also got 2 copies back in the UK. But when I was actually on the road, obviously I didn't want to be carrying loads and loads of hard drives, but I would sometimes have to carry quite a few. But I had my computer, which meant that it was quite easy to offload stuff, but I'd offload it through the computer onto a hard drive, and then I'd have another hard drive, which was just a clone of that one. So if one died, I'd have a backup, and then I'd have to frantically go around shops and try and find another hard drive so I could back up the first one, if that makes sense. So a lot of the time I was just carrying 2 hard drives, and then near the end of the tour where I was filming more and shooting larger file sizes and stuff like this, then I was having to carry like 4 or 6 hard drives at one point. And yeah, a lot of this was just dealt with through the computer. I never really uploaded anything to the cloud. I never really found that I had the time to be able to leave an upload going or the internet speed. So I found having it physically was a better way of doing it. And then occasionally my parents came out, my sister came out. I would then send them back with a load of footage, and they would bring me fresh hard drives. I think that answers the question.
Good. And do you still have the little dino dude you picked up along the side on the road?
I do. I've still got Clarence, or at least he's back in the UK. My unicycle is in the UK at my parents' place, and he's still attached to the little fender bit.
That's cute. Most helpful apps in the trip?
By far, the most helpful app was how I used to navigate. When I left, I wasn't totally sure how I was going to do it. I had a Garmin. I had a borrowed Garmin that I was very kindly sort of lent for the trip. But I decided actually that I didn't want to carry around this 800 quid piece of equipment on my unicycle. And I wasn't using it that much. I downloaded an app called Maps.me, and this uses OpenStreetMaps, the data from OpenStreetMaps. And I found it to be very, very accurate. I never really used it for like telling me the route to go, but it was always accurate enough that I could see where I wanted to go, and then I'd sort of pick my own roads depending on that. So throughout the day, I'd just be constantly seeing where I was and sort of where I was going and sort of what options I had. So yeah, Maps.me, definitely by far.
Mm-hmm. What was the longest you have ever rode in a single day?
I picked this question because I wanted to show off. The longest I've ridden in a single day.
100.
I think it was 130 miles.
Wow. Yeah.
No, it's kind of a lie because that was over a 25-hour period, and I think that was from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day, and that was in China, and that was when I just wanted to get to Kunming, a big city in China, before Christmas. And I realised that I had a very limited amount of time to do it, but I didn't want to be on the road for Christmas. I wanted to be in the city with people. So I just sort of pushed the distance. I took a kind of lazy day in the morning, and then at 2 o'clock I left, and I rode through the night, had a couple of hours sleep in some construction site, and then the next morning pushed the distance to the city. I don't recommend it. It was my bum pains after that were the worst they've ever been on the trip. And I think I slept for like 2 days. No, I didn't, but you know what I mean. How many revs is the world? That's a good question. I actually don't know. I think it's somewhere in the range of 10 million revolutions of the unicycle wheel. But I'll work out an exact amount and I'll put it in the video here because that'll be interesting to actually know. Do you want to do the next one? Oh, do you want to do that one?
Did you ever feel like you get murdered out in the wild world on your own? Well, honestly, when Ed was here and he said that he's going towards China through the border, and it was a little bit scary because it's very, mountainous region, and we have wolves and coyotes. And especially when my grandparents heard of it, they were like, "Oh my God, there are wolves, red wolves, don't go there." And we have given you this.
You gave me some like matches which like exploded, like cracker bangs or something, whatever it was.
Yeah, so I don't know. I personally was a little bit scared, but then I thought, no, Ed is pretty aware of things, so it was fine.
But I think what this chap's asking, I think, wild animals as well. But I think aside from that, he's talking about getting murdered by people. And no, I never really felt in any danger of that. People are good. That's the short and long of it.
Yeah.
People are good, and I experienced very little sort of negativity and sort of aggression on my trip. Who's going to mess with a guy on a unicycle? Well, that's maybe a bad question actually, but I felt very safe out in the world. If you also ride 20 or 19-inch unis, what tricks can you do? I don't really. Most of my unicycling is on sort of bigger, long-distance stuff, but I did once learn how to do a 180 uni spin on my little 16-inch unicycle, so maybe that counts. Advice for someone who wants to do a unicycle tour. I mean, obvious advice, learn how to ride a unicycle first. And then I think the big step, if you want to do it in a kind of self-supported way that I did, is work out how to put stuff on your unicycle. This is probably going to need to be a custom job. There is nothing really out there for unicycles specifically that, like panniers and things, you have to work out how to do it yourself. Either you want to do it a simple way where you just put stuff on in a backpack on your back. Don't recommend this because you're going to come into a lot of saddle sores this way. Basically, you want to try and get stuff on the frame if you can, and work out the smallest amount of gear that you want to take that you can do it, and just go and try it out. And if you like it, then maybe look at doing something bigger. That's my advice. Okay, and final question: are you ever going to do another trip around the world, or at least another long distance trip? I guess. Yeah, I'm probably not going to do another unicycle tour for a long time, but I would like to do another cycling trip, probably not around the world, but maybe a more localized thing where I can focus on a specific area. And I'd quite like to do that with Aishola. We haven't quite decided exactly what we're going to do yet, or if we're going to do anything, so I don't want to get your hopes up, but we do have ideas. Certainly at the moment, it doesn't work because of this current situation, but certainly when we're allowed out again, when we're all allowed out, then maybe something will happen. But yeah, certainly I do want to do something. It's just working out the logistics and waiting for this whole thing to kind of blow over before we can really start thinking about doing something seriously. But sound like a plan? Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to do a long distance cycle trip? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah.
I don't want to do it in a cold place.
Okay, so I guess we're going to do a long distance cycle trip in a warm place then. Okay, I'm going to call that good for the questions. Thank you for asking me them. I hope you all stay safe. Keep yourself staying safe. Stay in. If you go out, wash your hands. Don't kiss your grandmothers.
And don't touch your face.
And don't touch your faces. Bye.